talk about things going in an unexpected direction. My interview with Andi Deris was supposed to be about 20 or 30 minutes, but we went way beyond that, so there is a lot of information for those of you who are big Helloween fans. But to be honest, even if you're not into this particular band, I think that the interview is actually pretty interesting. Andi has been the singer of Helloween, one of the most important heavy metal bands in the world, for almost 30 years, so he's in a very good position to not just reminisce about the band, but also to share some insight on how growing up and maturing affects your life when you are in a band. For example, in a section that I think you'll find really interesting, we talk about how when you're young, everything feels super important and you have to be the alpha all the time. This means that you maybe have more fights than you really need. And in a band setting, where you spend months at a time with each other on the road, in the recording studio, in backstage at festivals and venues, this can be a recipe for disaster. You're also going to hear about what Andi calls Roland Grappau's betrayal of Helloween and what exactly he means when he uses that word. What is it that he is supposed to have done? Well, you're gonna have to watch to find out. We also discussed how Andi introduces some of his own political thoughts and ideas into the music, but using a lot of metaphors and not really spoon-feeding the fans his own values and his own thoughts. Connected to this, we also touched upon the situation of Julian Assange, the journalist and political prisoner who is currently locked up in the United Kingdom, facing extradition to the United States for reporting on the war crimes that the US committed in Iraq and Afghanistan. If you want to know more about Julian Assange or his possible extradition to the United States, an extradition that, by the way, is opposed by Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, the ACLU, and basically every freedom of the press and freedom of speech organization in the world, please visit don'textraditeassange.com. Please remember that if you want to support us, and we really hope that you do, you can do so through the link in the description below. We don't carry ads and we don't do any sponsored content, so we rely, or at least we hope to rely, on the support of viewers like you. I think that's about it, so enjoy this hour-long interview that I did with the amazing Andi Deris of Helloween as we prepare for the release of their 16th studio album, simply titled Helloween, and which will be out on June 18th via Nuclear Blast Records. Enjoy and stay metal. It is difficult to talk about so-called power metal without first mentioning Helloween. Started in 1984 by Kai Hansen, Michael Weikath, and Markus Grokov and Ingo Schwichtenberg, the band has gone on to become one of the most important bands of the genre, selling over 8 million records worldwide. Their story hasn't been so easy, however, since they've gone through huge lineup changes, with only Michael Weikath and Markus Grokov being constant in their 37 years. In 1994, Andi Deris joined Helloween as their singer, and he has been kicking ass in that role ever since. And he joins me today from his home in Tenerife, Spain. Andi, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Very, very, very big pleasure here.
So the obvious question, 2020, terrible, 2021, slightly better. How are you and your family?
Well, we are quite all right over here. We are blessed on the islands with having had only one lockdown in April last year, which took like 3.5 weeks. And from that point on, we've been living a more or less normal life. There had been one occasion where they closed the restaurants inside, but the terraces were always open. So since around about 2 months, I would say, we're completely back to normal, because there's the Spanish law which says after 1 year they have to actually pull the trigger, so to say, and not going into that alarm state anymore. So it's by law 1 year maximum, and this year passed last month. So it's back to normal, more or less, even though you see lots of people, or the majority of people, still wearing masks outside, which is okay. But at least normal life seems to continue.
But as an immigrant in Spain, I assume that you face the challenge that many of us who are immigrants in other countries face with the pandemic, which is like maybe flying home, see your family, see your friends. How did you keep yourself entertained, being what I assume was spending more time in Tenerife than you expected to be spending last year?
No, we are living constantly in Tenerife anyway, since 24 years.
Right, but what I mean is that normally you would be touring, you would be traveling, etc.
We would have been traveling from October last year on, and the world tour would probably be finished in October this year. So everything had to be postponed twice already. So this wise, That's why the management and the band decided to actually pull the trigger completely for this year, because last year we've seen what's going on. You can't put any confidence in anything, because everything changes, and even if you try to follow, probably you don't know the rules which are for this week, and next week there will be completely different rules. Because when I look to Germany, all my friends in Germany, they don't actually know what's going on. Do we have to do this, or do we have to do that? When do we have to be back at home now? Because last week it was 10. Oh, no, today. Oh, this week it's 9 o'clock. Okay, so they are completely confused. So we told ourselves, okay, we postpone everything to 22. So let's just hope we are allowed to play in 2022 finally, because otherwise it would mean to postpone everything again and again. And planning and booking a world tour is not done in a month or so. So unfortunately, our office was actually booking 2 world tours for nothing. And I just hope the third planning is taking place as planned. So fingers crossed.
Of course, you are especially affected by this, perhaps not in your position as in a successful band, but in the case of Germany, for example, we have seen these big campaigns when they illuminated everything in red because of the damage that these emergency measures have caused to the entertainment industry without an adequate compensation scheme devised to help musicians. What have you heard from musicians, friends, just exclusively in this business of yours? How is the situation?
Well, as far as I heard, it's pretty damaging. It's pretty bad. Compensations were promised for October, November last year. The politics even called it November, October aid. And as far as I know, so far nothing was received. So we're in May now, and I don't actually know how the people survive there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fully understand. It has been quite surprising because I think that many people, when they imagine the music industry, they think of you. They think of the people on stage, and they forget the enormous industry that runs behind it. Catering, toilets, everything. And that is an entire part that is closed down.
Yeah, I think at least of the 4 I know, 3 had closed down. One is still up and hopefully running. Which means in the near future there has to be a change that they actually can run their business. Otherwise, I fear they have to close down as well.
We're talking venues.
No, these are like mainly 2 venues and 2 suppliers of the gear, like stages, amplifiers, everything. One of them is still up and running. I think they had a good business the last year, so they have some money in the bank to live off now. But as far as I know, at least information from last week, they did not even receive a penny so far. Yeah, it's a very sad story, actually. It looks like they on purpose try to kill all the companies and stuff like that. I don't know to what aim and to what goal, but it's very drastically over there, I would say. And here as well. But over here, the tourism is starting again. So there's this so-called light at the end of the tunnel. Mm-hmm. So people are encouraged again and hope for the better this year, that they actually can compensate a little bit of the losses of last year, at least to survive this year. But in Germany, I would say, woof, this is very drastic.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know still, for example, if Wacken is going to happen. Wacken hasn't officially canceled, although I think it's reasonable to think that it will not happen. Hellfest already canceled, of course, in France. It's a dire situation for the industry, so whenever I have an opportunity, I like to bring it up, because I think that many people, of course, musicians know, but many of the fans are not aware of how bad it has gotten for musicians and for the industry.
It's super bad. I mean, even bands like us, I mean, if there's another year without concerts, I think our band will struggle as well. So everybody will struggle, because you have to see we invested big time in the new album. Before we knew that the pandemic will happen, we scheduled a production which is actually crazy, because we went into all these analog studios and did it the old way. And the old way is definitely much, much, much more expensive than just going digital and there you go.
You'll have to forgive my ignorance on that, but since I know that you have a studio, maybe you are the right person to teach me this. Why is it more expensive?
Well, as in the latter years, we actually exclusively recorded here in my studio, which is completely digital. Digital is always very, very cheap in comparison to analog because you're just recording onto a computer. A computer will cost you, let's say, 3,000 or 4,000 quid, and you got the most of the gear that you usually had, like real gear, you now have in the box, like plugins. Plugins in itself, like they are very cheap in comparison to the originals. Now, when we had the idea to actually try to, at least in spirit and mind, bring in Ingo Schwichtenberg as the old drummer into the band, we realized, okay, we have to buy the old drum kit from Ingo, which was fortunately available, and the guy who had it, he actually wrapped it in aluminum. It was down there in the cellar. When we unpacked it, it was brand new. So this was fantastic. We hooked it up in the old Chateau studio in Hamburg, where Ingo used to record the drums. And in this studio, there happened to be the old 24 track machines, tape machines, still up and running. So fortunately, the technician from back in the days was still up and running as well, alive, because there are not so many technicians anymore who actually can make all the measurements and make these machines work and sound. And fortunately, Achim Kruse is his name. He was super hipped about it. Yeah, again, sure, yes. Finally, a band who's going analog again. So it took like 3 days to actually hook up all the machines and connect them to the mixer, to the mixing boards. And at the end of the day, when Dani was playing the first tunes on the drums, which actually it was only supposed to be the pre-production in the studio, in the Chateau studio in Hamburg. But when we heard the sound, then we said, okay, we have to do everything now concerning drums and bass. We have to record everything in this studio where Ingo originally recorded. Just keep it hooked up, the drums, and go for the whole production. That's what we did. Fortunately, the whole studio was available. So, yeah, that was the right way to go. But if you would ask me now, probably we would not have done it if we would have known that there's a pandemic hitting us, because this was nearly 3 months in this analog studio with the analog gear. And you had to have, as I said, you had to have the technicians, and everybody had to be there in the daily routine, because analog gear is so dodgy in comparison to the digital. So you have to have a technician by your hand nearly every day. So we ran into costs that were exploding, so to say. Now, when you hear the result, I personally think it was worth it. But nevertheless, it took away at least a year of living, if we talk about the costs. So in the aftermath, it's kind of suicide to do an expensive production like that. If you hear the result, I personally think it was worth it. If we cannot tour in 22, it cost our neck.
Yeah, I can imagine. I knew that Ingo's drum kit had been used, but I didn't know that it was that it was kind of a whole journey to acquire it. So can you tell me a little bit about that? I didn't know about it.
Well, when we did the Pumpkins United tour, we realized it's not only us on stage who were kind of nearly having tears in our eyes when we saw the drum battle from Dani and Ingo on the big screen and everything. The people were like they were standing there, half tears in their eyes, and everybody thought it's super, super great idea, and everything went down exactly as planned, so that the people actually get that spirit. There was Ingo, and he's one of the 4 main members, and yeah.
And how did the drum kit end up with somebody else? I mean, after Ingo's passing, that you mentioned that you had to buy it from somebody else.
Yeah, I think it was Ingo's brother who sold it to that guy who must be a huge Helloween fan, at least back in the days, probably nowadays again, now again. And yeah, he kind of treated it like the Holy Grail and wrapped it and um, it was, as I told you, I mean, he must have had specialists who actually brought the drum kit into a nearly new state and wrapped it in aluminum and had it down there in his cellar.
How does it make you feel? I don't mean the drum itself, but rather to see that you're part of something that clearly means so much to people that somebody would be willing to buy a drum kit not to use it, just to have it in this sort of shrine. How does it feel to you? Because it must be a really weird experience, right? It's positive, but at the same time, you mean a lot to people who don't know you. So it's kind of strange.
Yes and no. I mean, you're getting used to it. You're getting used to it. I do remember there are people, speaking for myself now, they named their kids Andy. Then when the kid arrived, it was a girl. Now she's called Deris because he thought Deris is a nice surname for a female too. And he's a Brazilian guy. And I was actually between, I thought, okay, this is it fandom or is it craziness? I mean, you know. So yeah, then speaking for myself, I got a very old guitar down there, which is built 64 Black Beauty Les Paul from Gibson. And it cost a shitload of money, but I knew who played it, so I wanted to have it.
Well, who played it?
It was like Rory Gallagher.
Okay.
And yeah, to a certain extent, I completely understand. I mean, it's not only fandom; you actually catch the spirit. It's something personal, and it's not probably it's not supposed for anybody else out there to understand what feeling you have with certain things. But I think there are lots of people who have a kind of connection to, in this case, a drum kit. In my case, a guitar. Whatever. Maybe some people are collectors of puppets. You know? So I'm not the one to actually judge whoever has a certain hobby or a certain connection to something. There's no argument for or against it.
But I didn't mean so much on the issue of collecting. I'm sorry for interrupting. I meant more in the sense of realizing that you mean so much to somebody else who doesn't know you. So I don't. I collect random shit as well. I have one of your drummer's drumsticks around there. So I have stuff from musicians. So it's not just you, it's also me. But it's weird because especially growing up, I felt it with some bands when you think, I know that other people like this band, but I get them. You know, there is an emotional connection. And when you feel that you're the person receiving that love and that care and sometimes that anger from fans, it can be quite intimidating, quite strange, because after all, you don't know them, but they seem to know you or they think they know you, right?
It's as I said, it's something that you get used to it. And I always try to remember that I'm a bit crazy here and there as well. So again, nothing to judge. I think it's just great. When it comes to the drums, for example, I think it's great that he took care that much of it. And it's not about, speaking about that guy with the drums, it's not about money making or something like that, because the price was super cool. So we were able to get the drum kit back for the band, which means he did not do it for money. He did not think about, oh, I'm now waiting and it's wrapped in aluminum and in 10 years it'll be worth a fortune. No, it's definitely that heart blood he has with the band, the connection with Ingo, with Helloween, and for him it's a little dream come true to have the drum kit, seeing the drum kit hooked up and running again and recording an album for Helloween again. So I think that's a completely different world here. It's not about money or something. It's about feelings. So I'm not sure that I would be the same person when it comes to sell my guitar.
I get it.
But I never have to sell it.
Well, it depends who asks you, right? I mean, I have a bunch of things. I remember one of my favorite bands is Iron Maiden. And I remember that I once met them in a press conference. I gave Davey Murray a picture disc so that he would sign it. And he said, oh, I haven't seen one of these for years. And I was please don't ask me for it because I might give it to you, right? Because you think, well, if it's for this person from this band, I want to do it, right? So I wouldn't sell it to other people, but if the band told me, hey, can we have it? Yes. So I fully understand. But speaking about, dreams come true, I think that for many people, it was very much a dream come true to see what Pumpkins United was, to suddenly see Kai, Michael, and yourself singing Helloween songs. So many people hadn't seen that happen for a long time because, of course, Helloween had these tours with Gamma Ray, which I saw a few times, but now Michi is also involved. How did the idea of first touring with three singers simultaneously, as opposed to the Gamma Ray system where at the end you would do a couple of songs together, how did that idea come about?
Because of the Gamma Ray, actually. When Gamma Ray was touring with us for 2 world tours, it came quite natural. Suddenly, it was quite clear. Okay, the end of the show is like 2 or 3 songs with Kai. We knew the people enjoy it, and from that point of view on, there was this idea. Well, the only guy that we would miss on stage now is Michael Kiske, but Michael Kiske will probably not come only for 2 or 3 songs of the Helloween set. Completely understandable. I mean, he has not his own band like Kai with Gamma Ray. So for Michael Kiske, it would be just be there for the last 2 or 3 songs that seemed in itself stupid. Mm-hmm. So, and then we started, to spread our wings, talk a little bit here, talk a little bit there. And we realized the main thing is Michael Weikert and Michael Kiske, they had to meet to finally have a talk after all these years, because this was the main reason why Michael left the band, because of Michael Weikert. The understanding was not there anymore. Probably they even hated themselves back in the days. And so it happened that Michael Weikert and the 2 Michaels had a little meeting in the backstage area of a festival where Michael Kiske was playing as well. And it must have been a talk of like half an hour. And Michael Kiske told me then, for him, it was the icebreaker was the sentence that Michael Weikert was asking. Michael Weikert was asking Michael Kiske, what have I done that you cannot forgive me? And Michael Kiske was telling me that this was so heartwarming, because he realized in that very moment, well, actually nothing. It's so long ago, and he realized in that first talk that Michael Weikert has changed a lot. He himself has no bad feelings anymore, and he just asked himself, why the fuck? No, you did nothing. Actually, everything can be forgiven, because you seem to be a very nice person now. And whatever happened back in the days was a 50-50 thing. So when we look back, when I was, for example, 20 or 18 or 22, everybody in that age was feeling like being stepped on, or you did not want to be less than the other, or you think the other tried to be more than you. It was a constant fight and a little war even that's going on. In my old band, in Helloween, in every band, or even with friends amongst each other, there's always this guy who definitely wants to be the boss, and the other guys think, oh, this asshole wants to be the boss and try to defend themselves. So I think it's got something to do with the age. And then when you get mature and you get a little bit wiser and you've seen it all already, and you know that certain talks and certain discussions or behaviors lead to this, instead of the right direction, you go in the wrong direction, and you even know it, even though you can't keep your mouth shut. So that's probably this war gene of the youth. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I fully understand. I think that even as I mentioned, I'm in my late 30s. When I look back, I realized that most of the big fights that I had growing up were probably not that important to begin with. But at the time, you're so perhaps insecure in your youth that you want to make sure that everybody knows that they cannot fuck with you.
Exactly. And nowadays, we realized, okay, if you react cool and don't open your mouth in the very moment, the way your stomach tells you, but actually wait until your brain and heart drops in again, which means you have to sleep a night, and then you find the right words, and actually you can go on with the discussion with a clean head.
Yeah.
And this is actually, most of the times, I would say, most of the times, it's the solution. Certainly, it will not be a solution if you have a psychopath in front of you. I mean, this is something that we fortunately don't have in the band, but I know people who will always be an asshole because, I mean, with a psychopath, you cannot discuss. He wants to be number one, and whoever is in the way is going to be killed on the way.
Yeah, it absolutely happens.
So this happens, definitely. But as long as there are no psychopaths in the band, everything is possible. You just have to sleep a night over it, catch the guy again and say, look, we had this and that discussion, and let's have a calm talk about it. And sooner or later you find, okay, the opposite is not an asshole. You yourself are not an asshole, and you have a common ground where you can find a solution because you have a common baby that you don't actually want to sentence to death.
Yeah.
This is what happens in most of the bands.
And tell me, connected to that, the bringing Michi and Kai back, what is their status now in Helloween? Are they members of Helloween, meaning that it is expected that the next album would also have them, or are they guests now in this album? What's the situation there?
Well, it's members of the band, definitely.
Okay.
It's Pumpkins United. In contracts and in everything. If you want to talk business, it's exactly that. Helloween, the way we used to be with 5, is now Helloween with 7.
Okay, so so the next album would, in principle, have all 7 of you.
Well, not forced. I mean, there is no contract who binds you and sentences you to Helloween forever. I mean, if you don't want to be in Helloween anymore because it's too much stress or whatever is going down, you're able to leave without paying or something like you're being punished for whatever. No, that's not the case. It's
but the option is open. If they want to do it, they can continue.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. You know, you've toured already. You did the Pumpkins United with Kai and Michi, but on top of that, you're now recording an album. You recorded rather an album, and it's definitely different to do it with 3 singers, particularly when you are a band that has stylized itself as a band with 1 singer. So, how did that, I mean, was it always the plan as soon as the Pumpkins United was going that you thought we should absolutely do this also in album form?
Yeah, in the beginning there was this dream. So the first dream came true when we realized, okay, we're here. We're not only planning a tour theoretically, but we are in the process of planning a Pumpkins United tour. That was the first dream come true. That was the first hurdle to be taken. So we never made a big secret out of it. Actually, we told everybody we want to do a tour, and if the tour is turning out to be cool and giving the people the feeling of, yes, I want to be here, I want to be on stage with these people, there's no harm, chemistry is great, nobody hits at each other's face or kicking the teeth or something like that. So, and after that, we told everybody, after that, everything is open. Then probably there will be an album, but we will never promise that there will be an album. If the tour is not going down well, there's no album. That's been quite clear from beginning on. We told everybody. Now, that we recorded an album proves that we still like each other, because there's no big secret. On tour, you have to see yourself for 3 hours. This is survivable, put it that way. Even if there are people in the band that you hate, it would be survivable. 3 hours per day is okay. But then, if you have to go into studio, we're not talking about 3 hours. You see the boys 10, 12 hours every day. And this would be unbearable. If this would be a band not liking each other, you probably would need personal managers and
like the Metallica thing that they did in
Metallica, for example, to get along with each other. I mean, this is that would be an unbearable situation. So if the tour would have been something that we would have to break our teeth and fight ourselves through it because we hate each other, then there would be no studio album. Certainly not.
Hey, I don't care about the gossip aspect, so you don't need to tell me who. But in your career in Helloween, have you found yourself in circumstances where you go, oh my fucking God, I cannot stand this guy anymore, and you manage to work it out?
Well, for a short period of time, that was with Roland Grapple, when he still used to play guitar. We had to actually, not only myself, but we had to endure Roland because it's an open secret, actually. He betrayed the band financially and to a time where the band was financially not in a very good shape. So actually, this is exactly the time where you would have to stick together and help yourself and the others help yourself. So one for all for one, that Three Musketeer thing. In that point, Five Musketeers, but nevertheless, it did not take place actually in the hardest times. Actually, he betrayed the band, and even then, we had to continue the tour. So we had to finish the tour.
What do you mean by the term betray in that case?
Well, we're talking about a lot of money he actually used, Helloween money he used without telling the management and telling us. Because everybody of us has complete confidence in each other. So let's put it that way. If I would go into a music store and buy gear for the studio, whatever, I can pay it with Helloween money. So whatever I need. So I let's say I buy a Pro Tools system and whatever for 30 or 40,000. I can do that without a problem, but I have to actually put in the bills to the band and say, look, that's what I bought. Here we go. It's on my buddy. I'm responsible for it. I can do that. That's not a problem. But if I don't do that, if I just go in there and buy the stuff without telling the boys and hope that it's not being discovered at the end of the year, that's the wrong way to do, I would say.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. I fully understand what you mean. And other than those particular circumstances where, of course, were very bad, have you have other circumstances? Again, it's not with the interest of creating gossip, so you don't need to tell me who, where you kind of face that sort of challenges continue as you tour, because as you get older, also it happens to me. You get a bit more, perhaps, used to your own things, and like you like your space and you don't want to have people bothering you. And when you go through these tours that last months and months and months, it must be really challenging sometimes.
Yeah, but as I said, if you really want to bring yourself out of the craziness, you only have to be functioning for 3 hours per show day. The rest of the tour, you can take yourself completely out. Everybody does that from time to time. You need a few days for yourself. Then probably the boys don't see me that much because I'm not hanging out with them after the concert because I need my time. The same counts for everybody else. So there's maybe a day or two you just need time for yourself. And you not hang out on the pool, and you don't go with the boys into the restaurant. But for me, it's probably 1 or 2 days, and then I'm back with the boys again. And that's everybody. Sasha, Kai, Waiki needs his time off. Michael Kiske says, oh, I'm not in today. It's too much. I need time for myself. I want to read. I want to be up there just sleeping, whatever. So we don't face these problems we used to have back in the days. I do remember back in the days with Roland, for example, the last shows we had to finish with that knowledge that he actually betrayed the band. Everybody tried to get away from Roland, certainly. And at the very, very last concert in Mexico, Marcus and Waiki told them that he's out. I was up there with fever, completely sick. Fortunately, the tour was over. But I had the same with my former band, with Pink Cream. We had nearly a complete tour for the Games People Play album. That was the last album was in the band. And I was constantly off. I did not want to see anybody. So this is a horrible feeling I don't want to have again. So this is no fun, and suddenly you realize you had this improbable luck to make your hobby into your profession, and suddenly this turns against you, and it's the worst nightmare you have to endure for months after this frigging tour is finally over. It's such a relief when you don't have to see the people again. So I don't want to live through these days again. So that's why we actually told everybody, if the chemistry doesn't work, we rather call it day. And there will be no album if the chemistry would be bad, because we are all too old to go through that shit again. Everybody, yeah, because everybody knows what I'm talking about now. Everybody in Helloween had the same problems back in the days, and you don't need that. You really don't need that. It's like kicking your baby with your feet.
No, I fully get. I also get that. The older you get, the more you think, I don't want to take anybody's shit anymore. So either this works flawlessly, or I'd rather not do it. So I fully get it. Connected to that, since you mentioned this issue of turning your hobby into a profession, when did you realize, as a singer, as a musician, that you made it in that regard? When you think, wow, I succeeded at this.
Well, the first time was actually the One Size Fits All album with Pink Cream back in the days, when we hit #1 in Japan, and suddenly you were there. Nobody knew how it happened. Suddenly you have a big album in your hands, and you did not know what you did. Actually, it was like, well, you just written your song the way you did it. All the songs you've written 10 years ago were the same songs that you write now. So what did you do right now and wrong in the past days? Nobody could give you an answer. It's probably that the sensation to have something to the right time, at the right place. And maybe a month earlier or a month later, it would go poof and it's gone. So nobody would be interested.
Was it scary the first time? Because you think, hey, we're successful now, we made it here, but what if this is the only time we succeed and then it doesn't happen again? Do you feel that pressure as you start to amass success behind you, that you think, maybe I won't be able to repeat it? Of course you have, there is no doubt that you have, but back then you didn't know that.
This pressure, I have to say, this pressure comes most of the times, if not 100%, comes from everybody around you, not yourself. Because I remember the record companies giving you this what's the right word? The sweet and sour thing. So the sweet is like, yeah, you made a great album, and look, I mean, we made it successful, blah blah blah, and you think, yeah, wow, cool. And then the next sentence is the sour. So are you able to repeat that? You have to repeat that. The next album has to be even better, blah blah blah. So yeah, this pressure is most of the times being built around you from other people, not from yourself. Because as I said, for me, it was the big secret, which never been solved. The big secret, what did I do right now, and what did I did wrong the last 10 years? Because my songwriting was always the same. I never changed. I just write the stuff I want to listen to and think, okay, if I'm stupid Andy recording some ideas that I like, maybe I'm just, and hopefully I'm just this average boy with that average taste, which means that when I like it, there should be people out there who like it too. And that was my logic. And it took years until it finally was proven right. So that's what I mean. It's when I say you have to be there to the right time, to the right place, because you did not do anything else in your life than writing songs the way you write songs. You did not change. But why did it take years to finally being accepted? And all the years before that, nobody was interested in it. So it must have have to do with that right time, right place. So it's all about luck. So you have to be fortunate to be there with the right songs to the right time. I think that's the answer to it, because there are so many musicians out there. I could name you, even from my hometown, there were great bands. They wrote great songs. But why did we make it and they don't? So because they were not, they definitely were better than us. So musicianship and everything, and I don't know. It's all about luck and fortune, I think.
Yeah, no, of course. And connected to this topic of songwriting, I have the promo, of course, of Helloween. I was listening to it today. Nuclear Blast was kind enough to send it, but I didn't see the writing credits. So just to be clear on that part, did you write all the lyrics, some of the lyrics? What was your role in the writing of the album?
Well, I've written for the album. I've written 5 songs and the lyrics.
Mm-hmm. And I know. Go ahead. Sorry.
And then there was one song which I was co-writing with Sasha, and we shared the lyrics as well. So far, I can say everybody who writes a song writes his own lyrics. Unless, and this is not very often the case, unless the lyrics are so cheesy that you have to intervene. So you go like, okay, we like cheese, but not too much. So
I heard you say in an interview, if I'm not mistaken, that some people listen to the album and they think, oh, this is about the COVID thing. But in reality, it was songs from before the COVID stuff that you just connected the topic of, for example, freedom or state intervention into the lyrics. And I think I'm quite related to like the cause of liberty. So I'm interested in knowing where that inspiration comes from through your lyrics.
Well, the lyrics, mainly the high political lyrics, will always be in the keeper's world, put it that way. So I refer to The King for 1,000 Years, for example, when the Iraq thing was going down. But to that time, we produced the Legacy album. And back in those days, you could not actually write black on white what you think about Bush administration and Powell and all these lying bastards back in the days. Now we know that they lied. There have never been weapons of mass destruction. But
the only people who went to prison for that was Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning. I always try to bring it up because it's unfair. So
it's super unfair. But that's where we are heading to. Back in the days, if you would have put it into plain lyrics without hiding yourself in the keeper's world, so The King for 1,000 Years would have been highly probably censored in the United States.
But remember that when Bush was president, I remember this country band, and I am very sorry for interrupting, the Dixie Chicks. They said in a concert in Germany, we're ashamed that Bush is from Texas. And they fucking burned their records. They wouldn't get played in the radio. It was pretty insane.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Back in the days, you would probably be labeled as conspiracy theorist, conspiracy terrorist, I'd love to say nowadays. And so many things years ago, you would have been a conspiracy theorist, which turned out to be true. Everybody knows about it nowadays. Nobody looks back and says, for example, yeah, the Dixie Chicks were right, you know. So that's why I always feel quite comfortable to put it into Keeper's world then. So everything that happens is in the Keeper's world. It's just fantasy. So and Helloween fans know if you want to translate it into reality, you're welcome to do so. And you find yourself in reality, and you probably see some parallels, and definitely you see some statements from us who show you where we stand. But putting it in plain words with like names and everything, the real world would give you so much problems, even though years later everybody knew there is no weapons of mass destruction. Everybody knew that these bastards were even making billions of dollars because they suddenly had the power over the oil fields, mainly Powell and these people around him. Nowadays, it's just a sad truth. Back in the days, you would have probably been nailed at the wall.
But at the same time, it's quite frustrating, right? Because there is a part of me that I would like to move the conversation in a way that says, well, what are you concerned about now? But you and I know that the manner in which that gets reported is that we talk for an hour. And the only thing that Andi Deris said this about anything And it kind of makes, particularly for people in your position that have that platform, very difficult to say anything meaningful, because you know that you get taken, not necessarily, sometimes you get taken out of context, or at least the quote alone is the only thing that gets shared. And it creates more trouble that perhaps you are willing to engage in just to tell someone, yeah, I think Bush is a fucking asshole, right? So it must be challenging as well, because you also want to speak, and you know that this has commercial repercussions for you, or can have commercial repercussions.
Well, nowadays it's definitely better to keep your mouth shut and not say anything, and just wait for the time to clarify it. I think that's what we all wait for, because there is so much unsecureness, and nobody knows what's actually going on. I think for the most of the people, it's just the better, what's the right word?
Skepticism, I think. Just be skeptical of power.
Yeah, but skepticism is dead, because if you just believe what the mainstream media tells you, you are leading your life the way it is, and you think, okay, it's what it is, and you play along, and your life is much easier.
Yeah,
this is what most of the people do, and I'm guilty as well. Most of the times I close my eyes, I don't want to hear it, and my life is not being completely affected by it. I hope that's the most calm way to live, put it that way, and that's what we learned. Actually, that's what we've been prepared for in school. So the system knows everything, and you just play along, and your life is good. That's what we learned, and people believe in it. I believed in it, and now everything is a bit upside down, because there's two sides of the coin. There's those who just believe and trust, and there are those who say something is wrong here. We cannot trust anymore. And that's a very small path to walk on if you don't want to piss off anybody.
And also, it's a very difficult path to walk on, in the sense that, just not believing doesn't mean that you're right, of course. I mean, you can just fill your ignorance with dumb stuff as well, right? Like, you can believe that George Bush was a reptilian
alien or any crazy thing like that. So you can.
But I think that the value, for example, the platform that I have, and when I teach classes or stuff like that, the value that you want to give to people is basically, be skeptical of government, or be skeptical of the media. Just because somebody tells you, well, the government said this, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. And that applies to any government. It doesn't matter what government it is. You should be skeptical of power.
Yeah, you should be. But that's the point. In the very moment I realized, when you are now in 2021 or in 2020, when you are skeptical, you are wrong. That's what they tell you. Boom, there you go. Even if I go and say, yeah, but forgive me my skepticism, but could it be that this or that is being interpreted wrongly? No, you're wrong.
No, that's a fascist statement, or something like that. I think that is a big problem when we narrow the debate, so that we say either you're here or you're evil, right? So I think that's the big challenge.
That's the biggest point you made. You're with us or you're evil. And the point is, I am somewhere in between. I want to have a discussion. I want to have not only one guy who tells me what's right and wrong. I want to have at least 6 or 7, if not 10 people around the table, and discussing, giving themselves facts. I don't want to hear, and this is what I heard like over the last 15 months, I only hear platitudes. I only hear numbers without foundation. I want to hear
without context, right?
No,
what do you know it means?
If there's no foundation, you can tell me each and every figure, and the figure it comes and makes me scared. It makes me
susceptible.
And but if you don't have a foundation for that figure and explain, you can't explain me where this figure comes from, and nobody tells me that. So I have to actually go for myself into certain pages like World Health Organization or CDC or Hopkins or you name them, and look for myself. And this is something that I can't accept that. I cannot actually digest a number I see on television without the foundation. Where does this number come from? Explain me. You cannot tell me that there are so many dead people, and then I go into World Health Organization and I find out, yeah, but overall we have the same dead people over the last 10 years.
I think that these are completely valid concerns, and that the problem has been that when people express them, they are portrayed as if they didn't believe that something is happening, or they think that Bill Gates wants to put a chip on them, whereas sometimes it's just people need to be explained things in a way that they can understand it, instead of just telling them this is the truth, you either believe it or you're evil. Since you were mentioning that these comments, and I know that we got a little bit sidetracked, are most easily included in kind of the Keeper universe. And of course, when Skyfall was released, people said that it had a Keeper vibe. And we now look at the cover of the Helloween album, absolute Keeper vibe, down to the Keeper, the keys, everything. When did you know that it was going to take us back to the Keeper style, the Keeper era, the Keeper vibe? Was it always the idea that it was going to be that type of a throwback, or it appeared later?
Yeah, well, we had in mind to make a mixture of the last 30 years. So we had to have something like Walls of Jericho. We had to have lots of Keeper stuff. We had to have Master of the Rings and stuff like that, which connects to Andy. So yeah, we just threw in all the songs we had, and probably there are 2 or 3 more songs in the vibe of typical Keeper. There are songs in the vibe of typical Walls of Jericho. There's another song, typical Andy era, which did not make it onto the album, simply because we had to find a mixture which is, yeah, so to say, a journey through 3 decades. And the Keeper vibe in itself suddenly appeared when and this sounds a bit cheesy, but as soon as you record with analog drums from Ingo exactly in the same analog vibe in the studio where he used to record, you suddenly have that vibe from beginning on. Because sometimes I argue with Helloween fans, and they go, yeah, you have to write more into the Keeper of the Seven Keys direction. And I said, look, but on the Keeper of the Seven Keys, there's like Future World, there's I Want Out, there's Dr. Steen. These are not typical Keeper songs. You talk about Eagle Fly Free or Keeper of the Seven Keys or stuff, great songs like that. So you always forget that we have also #1 hits, which are not Keeper of the Seven Keys. It's actually pop metal, right? Like I Want Out or Dr. Steen. It's pop metal. And this is something that's a heritage that I want to actually have on the albums as well. So if we talk about Keeper, sometimes I thought, maybe it's more sound related. Yes, you have that certain direction you have to follow. But for me, it's always been 2 sides of the coin. You had an Eagle Fly Free, and to the same time, you have an I Want Out.
Mm-hmm.
And these are actually, from the style, 2 completely different bands.
Yeah,
so,
no, absolutely.
Which for me means, okay, Keeper of the Seven Keys, it's a very versatile thing, versatile albums, black and white, so to say. There's a bit speed metal, there's a bit complex, long songs, more complicated everything. Nice melodies everywhere, but the style is so mixed. It must be the sound that they are talking about. The combining factor must be the sound. And I think I'm not completely wrong there.
No, certainly not. Andy, since I see that we are now for sure running out of time, I will ask you for one small favor, which is we have these 3 amazing singers performing now with Helloween. But all 3 of them, you, Kai, and Michael, participated in different eras of the band. If you had to tell me one song for which people can listen to the Michael Kiske era, the Kai era, and the Andy era, what songs would that be?
Oh.
At the top of your head, of course, it's not like a definitive thing or anything. Just what song do you think better represents your singing in Helloween?
My singing? I don't know. Where the Rain Grows?
Okay, great. And for example, Michael era?
Eagles Fly Free,
Fantastic. And for Huck and for Kai.
Bright the Sky.
Amazing songs, all of them. Andy, thank you so much for the time that you've given me today. It has been really an enormous pleasure to meet you, sincerely. It has been really nice. I had interviewed other people in the band. You were still missing, so I am very happy that we were able to do it. It was really so nice to meet you, man, and I wish you all the best. We'll be